Government's push to improve housing and strengthen infrastructure continues with the completion of a new social housing development in Drummonds. The project forms part of a wider national effort to provide safe, affordable, and climate resilient housing for residents, particularly those most in need. Minister with responsibility for housing, Honorable John Patrick Osborne, says the initiative is critical, with more than 100 persons currently on the social housing waiting list. He says the development is designed to support individuals displaced by past disasters, as well as those unable to meet rising construction and rental costs.
So it's part of the government's plan to build resilient infrastructure for all its citizens. So under the CIPREG program, it was funded by the FCDO. Under the CIPREG program, we built this building which should house 4 occupants. There is a social housing wait list at the ministry. Currently sits at I think about 116 persons. And we're trying our best over the next few years to reduce that list by as much as possible. As you would know, there are some people who are displaced formerly by the volcano, some persons who just can't actually afford to build their own houses or even afford the rent at today's market rate. So it's government's responsibility at that point to take care of all its citizens and to make sure that they have affordable housing, and not only affordable housing, but climate resilient housing as well.
Minister Osborne explains how addressing the housing shortage is key to the island's future, while also outlining plans to involve both government and private sector partners in delivering long-term solutions.
No, well, obviously we have a shortage of people on island. We're trying to grow our economy. We're trying to grow the population. Housing is probably the biggest bottleneck in that. So we have to focus a lot on housing. So not just from the government side, we're also trying to do a few private sector initiatives to see if we can get the private sector engaged in building houses. A lot of them have been interested. So we've had those conversations both locally and overseas. We have had a few people who have flown in from overseas to look at possible developments as well. So we're waiting to see those projects come on board. But again, I think housing, if we can solve the housing issue, we'll solve quite a bit of our issues on Montserrat. Population retention, again, people want housing. Young people want housing. They don't want to always be paying rent because they want to know that they're paying towards something that they'll own and own a piece of Montserrat. So I think it's paramount that we actually fix the housing solutions on Montserrat. But again, we will try many different ways. Government has to do their bit on the social housing side because obviously some citizens just aren't making enough money right now to be able to house themselves. But for those who are, we will give them the opportunity as well to be able to build their housing using whatever crown lands we can find that are available and putting in the infrastructure that we need to put in.
This newly completed apartment building will house 4 individuals and represents the first completed unit under Phase 1 of the Drummonds Social Housing Project. Manager of the Land Development Authority and Project Manager Franklin Greenaway says the broader plan includes the full development of the site, with additional units to be constructed and older housing structures eventually removed and replaced. He says getting the infrastructural works up and running for getting the project underway.
The initial project started with infrastructure works because that was priority. So we have sewage installations. We also have electrical installations, all of this underground. We're looking at resilience. So we put all the services underground. Then we also have water installation and then the access coming in. Now that was the first approach in terms of the development because we had to get that done properly and get that done early. We also installed retaining walls. That's part of the whole process. And also drainage on the western side of the property. We have a U-drain that takes water off the site down to the main road. So that was the initial works that were done. And then the housing construction. This unit that you see is the first of 4 additional units or 3 additional units that we put on the site because one of these lots, this particular lot, we will have as parking, because parking is integral to the whole development. So the apartment block is 4 one-bedroom units, and the contract was signed for this unit on November 28th last year. The work started the 1st of December, and we had up to the 31st of March to complete. And we are proud to say that we would have done that successfully. The building is at practical completion. It has come in within the budget, and that is something that we're very proud of. So going forward, we have a number of concepts that we're looking at in terms of building out the Drummonds area. The minister would have told you that the housing lots, the family units, we wanted to get rid of them. They've been here since 1998, and they've long surpassed their lifespan. And of course, the tenants there, they want to be in better housing conditions. And this is the whole purpose of the build out of Drummonds. So this is phase one, which we're hoping to complete in quick time.
During a walkthrough of the building, Greenaway highlights the technical layout and designs of the units.
The structure itself is just around 2,000 square feet, both levels. They're one-bedroom units. They're minimum in terms of the size. We're talking about social housing. So you're not going to get elaborate spaces, but they're comfortable spaces. And I'm sure the tenants will be comfortable, especially coming from the environments that they have been in.
He says special attention was also given to the sewage system.
We ensured that the sewage system for this project is integrated into the Drummonds main system. So we spent a lot of time in terms of design to ensure that the flows are right, and so that the linkages are made throughout all the lots. You'll see manholes on the site which link the system into the main system which is further down the road. The normal sewage disposal system here is septic tanks. That's very difficult to achieve here. So you're not going to get soak in Drummonds. So you had to build a system that can integrate into the main system, and we have achieved that.
This formed a part of a list of government projects that fell under the March 31st deadline. Local contractor and owner of Steel Express Services, Justin Thomas, says construction began in early December and had to meet a tight timeline.
For us, when I say us, the workers, who is very important, I can't do it alone, I need them, and they work very hard. So we knew what at stake, so we thought it was very, very important to finish, as I said, finish on time and in budget. So we knew that if we fail, then the project fail, Montserrat fail. We didn't want that. So we gather as much work as we can at the time. We had to work very, very long hours, as you imagine, and basically 7 days a week to complete it. As we know, it's a very, very short time. It's one of those projects that had to finish by the end of March, and here we are, basically handover on time.
Thomas says sourcing materials locally played a key part of the process.
That's one of the highlights of it, able to find almost all the material locally. I mean, not that you can't source it overseas, but unfortunately it takes very, very long, 12, 14 weeks before you get it here. And then shipping, as you know, this time of the year, winter months, you're never sure what the sea will do. So we was quite lucky in that aspect. To be able to source this locally.
The project was not without its challenges. The rocky terrain in Drummonds made site preparation difficult, while weather and equipment constraints also had to be managed. Project manager Greenaway says they have ensured the building meets modern resilience standards, capable of withstanding hurricanes and seismic activity.
From the onset, we had challenges in terms of the site itself. The rock formation in Drummonds is very is hard, so we had some issues with carving out the lots themselves. That created a challenge for us, because we also had challenges with equipment, and also late in around September last year, we had a lot of September, October, there are a lot of challenges with rain, the weather. But since December, we've been blessed with good weather, sunshine, and we have had minimal challenges since then. In terms of construction, the usual supply chain issues that we face. But fortunately, we did a lot of pre-planning in terms of informing the merchants what we were doing. They got they got a list of the materials that we wanted, numbers of windows, types of windows. So we involved them from the initial stage, and that was like from once we had the tender documents prepared, we gave them a list of what materials that we wanted, so that we didn't have any supply issues, and that's critical because that of course that holds up construction projects. The structure itself is designed for resistance in terms improve resilience. So in terms of hurricane resistance, this structure can maintain that type of resistance from hurricanes. The structural integrity of the building is also up to a standard to withstand earthquakes and so on. It was designed in that way. What we need to do now is start to secure the other lots in terms of retaining walls and so on, so that we don't have too much of erosion and that on the sites. But that's in the planning stages.
Oversight and coordination were critical throughout the construction phase. Speaking on the final product, Clerk of Works within the Public Works Department, Andrew Daly, explains what it was like seeing the project materialized. He also touches on what is left to do in the project.
The construction was, I would say, perfect. It reflects everything that was drawn by the architects. I must say thank you to the persons at Public Works who have done the drawings and did the bill of quantities, and it worked out very good on our behalf, and I would not really have it any other way.
With the first project now complete, attention is turning to the remaining lots within Phase 1.
We await the budget to see where we take, as you see, where we take it next. As you see, the site has some vacant lots, so we would like to do everything this year. However, we're not the ones to dump, say that. So we await the outcome of the budget, and hopefully we'll get to do one or two more before the end of the year and increase the housing capacity of the island. As to this project, we have been issued with a practical completion, so in the next month or so we'll be doing rectification works, looking at anywhere that needs snagging and getting that correct. But we have been issued with a practical completion certificate, so basically it's ready for us.
Meantime, the project was considered by officials as a multi-sectoral approach. Communications undergrounding works were carried out at no cost through collaboration with the Montserrat Utilities Limited MUL, Flow, and Digicel. Digicel supplied the ducting, Flow provided the coupling, and MUL completed the installation. Real Estate Maintenance Officer at the Land Development Authority, Cecil Lake, says collaboration between the contractor, government agencies, and technical teams played a vital role in delivering the project within its time frame.
Oh well, this is a historic day in the island of Montserrat in particular construction, because construction has that impetus that generates economic growth in the economy. Since I've been a youngster, going back to the days where from W.H. Bramble, the first project housing concept that he had, building houses in St. Patrick's, building houses in Salem. Some of the houses are still in Salem. All of these help to drive economic growth, create housing for people, and this is what government need to do. They might not be able to provide housing for everybody, but as time goes on, over the years, you had W.H. Bramble, you had his son, then you had John Osborne, the other ministers, Ruben Mead today, projects of any nature. We have one going on over in Lookout. Projects, when it comes to infrastructure, that type of project, it generates economic activity, creates work, it creates employment, it makes people happy because here's it. Now we have an apartment that has been accomplished. Folks believe that it couldn't have been done within the time frame, and we did it. And we're going to be providing housing for at least four individuals. And this is a great accomplishment. The last time that the government of Montserrat / DFID FCO had a project of great magnitude was back in 2001 when we did housing over in Lookout. And we as LDA, the project managers, we have demonstrated once we have the right support, the right funding from FCDO, the political will, and I must thank the minister, Mr. John Osborne, who's been on board from day one with this, and the other ministers before, things can happen. And this is testimony to the fact that the Montserrat Land Development Authority, as long as they give us the support and the right budgeting, hey, we get the job done.
The Drummonds Social Housing Project represents a major step towards improving living conditions, supporting economic growth, and building a more resilient future for Montserrat. For ZGB News, I am Keola Green.